Alright, Intruder 1400 carb sink. I didn't think I felt the need to show how this all comes apart. There's the back pad that pops off, then you get your key that takes the trunk off. And there's one bolt there, then it comes up, and there's your two bolts here. That comes off, and then there's your two bolts right here for your tank. And when you unbolt your tank, you tip your back of your tank up. So if you do want to take your tank right off, I just have mine hanging on a rope here. But if you do want to take your tank off, you unbolt the back, you tip it up, and they're right here. See, there's plenty of slack in the hoses anyways. When I picked it up, that hose there ripped and it's leaking right now, so I have to fix that. But you tip your tank up and it's just a quarter turn here on your screwdriver. There's a petcock there to shut it off, and you can unhook the tank and your gas won't leak everywhere. But it doesn't matter what kind of vacuum gauge you're using. If you're using one of those mercury sliding scale ones, or if you're using just the a pressure gauge type, or if you make your own out of with pop bottles and liquid, it doesn't matter. It's still the same process. So your ports, where you tap into your ports, it's right here. That screw right there. See the screw right there? So there's your fuel petcock, right top of your engine there. Your fuel petcock is right there. And that is right in front of your intake boot, in the back side of the carburetor. That's right in the back of the carb, and there's your intake boot right there. And then the other side, it's a bit different. This is for the front cylinder. So now you see the horn. And then behind the horn, this one's on the engine. You see right there? There's your intake boot, and that's right on your head on the engine. That's your second location where you tap into your intake boot. So I bought a little synchronizer gauge kit here, so I'll get it set up. So here I just got this cheap IMGO carb sync kit here. And it's just got a regular vacuum gauge, and I noticed the needles weren't in the right spot. And then I seen, you just unscrew this lid, and the screws, see the screw there? And there. And you just turn those screws, you turn that screw and that moves the needle. So you can just screw the plastic off, and then you set the needles up according to that screw. I'm sure anyone that uses this regular old vacuum gauge already knew that, but I just learned that, so thought I would share it. Yeah, so I just had to unscrew the one screw for this, one Allen key screw, to get it over. And then when I took that screw out, I freaking lost the washer, the sealing washer behind this little screw. And the friggin' washer separated from the screw and fell in there somewhere, so I still got to get that out. And that was a bugger to get started in there. I actually had to put my hand around behind the carb and push the carb this way to get that cocked over enough to get it in there, but there she is. And then I just got the gauges set up like that for now. And if you guys know anything about intruders, you know that they look cool and they look nice and simple, but in their Suzuki's effort to simplify everything and make it look nice and clean, they made everything inaccessible and impossible to work on. They're friggin' just buggers to get to anything on these intruders. But you know that if you own one. So the horn was here, and it was just in the way, so there wasn't a straight shot. So to get to the horn, to get the horn off, there's a bracket, and there's just threaded holes in behind here in the frame. So I have to reach in there with a wrench, unbolt that, and take the horn off. To get to this one. So there, we're hooked up. I still gotta fix that line I broke. But not tonight. It's getting late, I'm going in the house. Well, it's a good thing I took a minute to think about this, and it's also a good thing that I browsed the instructions quick. So you see how these go into here to your gauge. Now I got to start this bike cold. So to start that, I got to turn on the choke. And if I turn on the choke right now, It's going to close this, it's going to close the air. It's going to start sucking all the vacuum from the engine. It's going to start trying to suck air in through this hose, and it's just going to max these gauges out. So, to start it up, I'm just going to unplug these hoses off the gauges. And it actually comes with these valves, because inside here, this isn't just, like the tube isn't this size, it's restricted to just a small little pinhole on the inside. Because anytime, even if you're making a system, you have to put a restriction in the system, or else your reading's just going to fluctuate and bounce. You have to have a restriction to even it out. So, it comes with these, if you have to add them in the lines, to close the valves, to add more restrictions, just to smooth out your reading. So I'm just going to unplug these, I'm going to stick these valves on and shut them off, and fire the bike up, get it warmed up so we can start with no choke. Then I'm going to shut it off, hook the vacuum gauges back up, and then refire it up. So I got these hoses hooked up. I fixed this one, and if you ever wonder which one goes where, because one's your reserve and one's your on, I just realized here today, freaking tank. Anyways, there's an O right there. There's an O, and the other side there's an R. And on this valve, there's a corresponding O and R for your hoses. So, the last time I had it apart, I hooked them up backwards, and a walk home to get a jerry can of gas was a good lesson there. So yeah, I cut off the end of both these hoses. They were kind of kinked. Here we go. I unhooked the gauges, and I just put two lines together, and I closed this valve. So I'll fire the bike up and let it warm up for a minute. The tank's at a weird angle. Hopefully, it's getting gas. I don't know how much gas is in there. Okay. Choke on. Run. Okay. So here, I just simply cut the hoses and added these valves in. To flutter a little bit just so you know the valve's not shut all the way off. Alright. Not idle, they're off a bit, but not bad. Why did that do that? Interesting. Okay, so the big backfire was it ran out of fuel. That petcock, there's a stop. You can turn it all the way one way, hit a stop, turn it all the way the other way, hit a stop. But horizontal's off, vertical's on. I just cranked it all the way the other way. So the fuel was off. So that's what happened there. So it looks like this one. Looks like the back carb is drawing more vacuum. So I'm just gonna have to take a look for a second here and see how this throttle system works. I think. Okay, I'll get back to you. The screw is pretty touchy. I think that's as close as I'm going to get it under load, under RPM. See, so all I did was I just throttle cable adjustment there. I just kept adjusting it up and down as per required until it was balanced. So I'm going to tighten that gem nut back up and then proceed to figure out. Must be an idle screw on here somewhere. So I can just balance it out at idle and we'll go from there. Not going to get any better than that. This is this here master idle here. I just fiddled with that a bit until I evened out a bit, but the idle's not a big deal. But they're pretty friggin' close. I'm not going to get no closer than that. So yeah, we'll start putting her back together. And magically, my little sealing washer, where are we here? Little washer for this guy that goes in here fell on the floor. Got her back, so I just got to put her all back together. Try this thing out. Alright guys, thanks for watching.